At the moment, it's important because America is supposedly arming some Kurdish groups based in this region as a form of ground war on Iran. There are small Kurdish opposition groups in northwest Iran, and they have bases over the border in this region. And there are these reports that the Americans want them to sort of stage some sort of uprising against Iran. So this is a pretty key place at the moment.
A week into this conflict with Iran, President Trump has left Washington for Florida this weekend as Iran's retaliation, sparked by US and Israeli strikes, continues to draw the wider region into the conflict. There are mixed messages from the White House about how this war will end. The US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has brushed off reports that Russia's providing intelligence to Iran on US troop positions and movements. He gave an interview to CBS, the CBS programme 60 Minutes. Here's part of it.
Our commanders are aware of everything. We have the best intelligence in the world. We're aware of who's talking to who, why they're talking to him, how accurate that information might be, how we factor that into our battle plans, our CENTCOM commander. So we know what's going on, and the president has an incredible knack at knowing how to mitigate those risks. And so the American people can rest assured their commander-in-chief is well aware of who's talking to who, and anything that shouldn't be happening, whether it's in public or back-channeled, is being confronted and confronted strongly.
The American people can therefore expect conversations with the Russians to stop this?
Well, President Trump, as people have seen, has a unique relationship with a lot of world leaders where he can get things done that other presidents, certainly Joe Biden, never could have. And through direct conversations or indirect, through him one-to-one or through his cabinet, messages definitely can be delivered.
Does this put U.S. personnel in any more danger than they otherwise would be?
Well,
the Russian involvement.
No one's putting us in danger. We're putting the other guys in danger. That's our job. So we're not concerned about that. We mitigate it as we need to. Our commanders factor all of this, but the only ones that need to be worried right now are Iranians that think they're going to live.
Wow, OK. Well, first of all, I'm not quite sure why they're still fighting Joe Biden and his particular legacy. And second of all, the only people to worry are Iranians who think they're going to live. Well, let's speak to the Times correspondent Richard Spencer, who joins us from Erbil in Kurdish Iraq, near the Iran border. Richard, good morning from us.
Good morning.
First of all, just describe where you are. What's taking you there? What is the significance of that area?
So Iraqi Kurdistan is quite an important node in the Middle East historically, and particularly at the moment. It's a Western ally sort of carved out from within the fractured state that is Iraq. 35 years ago, the West helped bring this semi-autonomous enclave into existence by providing a no-fly zone at the end of the first war between the West and Iraq back in 1990 over Kuwait, 91. And indeed, I drove down Sir John Major Avenue yesterday evening on the way back to my hotel. At the moment, it's important because America is supposedly arming some Kurdish groups based in this region as a form of ground war on Iran. There are small Kurdish opposition groups in northwest Iran, and they have bases over the border in this region. And there are these reports that the Americans want them to sort of stage some sort of uprising against Iran. So this is a pretty key place at the moment.
Yeah. What do you make of those reports that the US is kind of funneling energy through that part of the world to try to provoke this uprising? Does that seem to be credible?
I mean, it's half credible. I mean, it is credible, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't disbelieve the reports.
Sure.
Indeed, the American leadership have sort of hinted as much. I think there's a certain amount of psychological warfare going on there. Most experts on this issue would say that these Kurdish groups inside Iran don't have as much. Don't have the numbers or the weight to do a huge amount of damage damage to Iran, certainly not to sort of sweep through and seize the capital. I think the thinking is that anything like this would undermine the state more, lead more to state breakup, for example, state collapse in the absence of a leadership, and uncertainty what happens next, or indeed I think what they really like is for a bit of armed trouble in the northwest to sort of trigger a countrywide uprising. But Kurds are about 10% of the population of Iran, maybe 15% at maximum. They're not going to sort of take over the government in Tehran. It's just a sort of causing trouble sort of thing.
Yeah, I hear you. It's fascinating to hear that and to sort of try to piece all the bits of the puzzle together. As you've kind of moved around the region, Richard, and spoken to people there and assessed the situation, how are you reflecting on being a week into this thing? We understand that the biggest bombing campaign yet is underway even as we speak on Tehran. This thing has involved, I think it's probably pushing 20 countries now. I'm just intrigued for your sort of analysis on how things have evolved over the last week.
Yeah, I think people have. There is a range of views, obviously, as there is on everything. Even from the Iranians I've spoken to, you have some who are clearly terrified and angry, and others who are saying, not exactly bring on the bombs. I don't think anyone says bring on the bombs, but certainly says, well, if this leads to the fall of the regime, then good. I think other parts of the region, Iran is not widely loved, except for those who share its particular political and religious ideology. For example, its supporters in Lebanon, who are currently being attacked by Israel. They obviously are against what America and Israel are doing. Others do see it as a nuisance that does arm these very divisive militias around the region, which are supposedly there to liberate Palestine, but in fact often cause this, a part of very intricate and divisive politics inside the countries like Iraq here or Lebanon. And they'd quite like the regime gone, but there is, of course, also uncertainty about what comes next. They all saw what happened after 2003 and terrified that something like that is going to happen again.
Is it ever wholly accurate to refer to allies of Iran? And by that I mean what level of support is offered from those who may be supportive of the Iranian regime. I was reading your analysis piece in the Times today on the role that China is playing here, where President Xi mourned the death of the Ayatollah. China is the biggest purchaser of sanctioned Iranian oil and something of a diplomatic backer. But there's no sort of, if I can put it like this, real intervention from China at this point in the conflict.
There are some reports that China might give some aid to Iran. It certainly doesn't want to see American power so wholly vindicated that the regime collapses in a few days. That would be very bad news for China. But what it teaches President Xi really is the virtue of hard power. There's been a lot of talk in the last 20 years about China's soft power, its influence using trade and its amazing, manufacturing products around the world as an in, if you like, to have global influence and get closer to countries often a long way from China, and often countries that have been estranged from China. And then it sees America just go in and, effectively wipe out countries like Iraq 20 years ago, or in this case, Iran, take out its leadership, go into Venezuela, take its president, then kill another national leader in Iran a few weeks later. And he's thinking, there's not much I can do on this occasion. I'm not going to send weapons. I'm not going to send troops to defend Iran. We work together. I buy Iran's oil. I support it in the UN, but I'm not going to actually go and try and defend it. That would be a crazy thing to do. But on the other hand, clearly America is prepared to use military ends to get what it wants. That includes strategic goals in my neck of the woods. So I better, build up my military ever faster to make sure that nothing like that happens to me.
Yeah, oh, that's fascinating. What then of where this thing goes next? We had the ambassador to the UK of the United Arab Emirates on this programme yesterday, who said that they would welcome more support from the UK, also that the Gulf states really want this to be contained. Qatar is warning about the soaring price of oil. That is something that's going to get real pretty quickly in the US, the UK, and of course elsewhere around the world as well. Donald Trump, at the front page of the Times this morning, says surrender. That's what he wants, unconditional surrender from Iran. Is there an off-ramp that is obvious and visible at this point?
There are off-ramps. Not clear really that anyone wants to take them.
Yeah.
I think there's a sort of game of chicken going on here. How much can you suffer, and what might you how far are you prepared to go in resisting us? Iran has prepared for this. It has a siege mentality, always has had under this Islamic Republic, and some people would say even before that. It's not going to give in lightly. It will carry on causing havoc around the region. There comes a point when it runs out of missiles. As others say, there comes a point when the Gulf runs out of interceptor missiles to knock down those missiles. So there's also a question of how much damage they can take. I mean, it's all pretty random. There is no sign of an American ground invasion of Iran. But on the other hand, of course, there's no suggestion that Iran can do much more other than lob missiles at its neighbours. I mean, but that is quite random. I mean, the hotel near me was hit last night with a drone. A hotel I've stayed in before. This is quite a long way from. It's not that far from Iran, but it doesn't feel like a city on the edge of a war zone, and that's true across the Gulf and across the region. Tourist hotels are being hit, as we've seen. Military installations. This isn't what the Gulf wants to see. It's devastating potential economic effects for the Gulf, but also for the rest of the world because of the oil price. So it's really just a game of chicken. How long Iran can hold out, and how long Trump can keep his attention on this game for, and he does seem to be treating it rather as a game. He wants them to surrender. They won't yet, but they might be prepared to do some sort of deal. And then you have to ask what sort of deal would Trump accept, and he gives very different views on that when you ask him from day to day.
Yeah, Richard, always great to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
That's Richard Spencer, Times correspondent, speaking to us from Erbil in Kurdish Iraq. You can read more from Richard in the Times this morning and in the days ahead as well.